Hey everybody! I have not managed to mash together my ankle recovery video after dislocating and breaking my ankle, and I've been meaning to do it, but I didn't want procrastinating on that to stop me from making the video that I'm being asked for the most, which is how I maintain my wheels and bearings for skating, speed skating and roller derby, which are the two main things that I do. So instead of keeping everybody waiting, I figure I'll get this video out because I've got a set that need to be done, and the ankle recovery / rehabilitation video is going to be coming soon. Because the season is starting soon. We're in a new year now. I'm about to get back on track. I've got a couple little things that are going to slow me down a little bit at the start of this season, but then hopefully it's smooth sailing from there. But enough about that. I'm going to get on and show you these wheels. So these are some Radar Bullets, and that's not a bad wheel at all. It's quite a nice wheel, probably, if I have to estimate, would set you back about 70 Australian dollars for 4. Obviously with roller skates we need 8, so you know, $140 wheels, and I got them secondhand. They are like new in many ways. There's not a lot of wear to the print, and there is still some really good, I don't know if you can see it, probably not. I don't think I can focus when I've got it on front facing camera either, but there's some good grooves still in this wheel. If I get closer, maybe. No, you can't see it, but you can hear it, maybe. So we got some good grooves there, but it looks like somebody has taken these outdoors, and they've also been left by somebody who stopped derbying, like, oh gosh, a few years ago. I think they've just been left to collect dust. You cannot even make out what brand of bearing that is because it is so dirty, but if I had to guess, that's a Bones Red bearing, and it will come up bright red by the time I'm through with it. I will show you these wheels in some better light, and then we will get on with the maintenance. Sorry if you can hear background noise. Little one has a friend she is playing with. Okay, hopefully this is enough light for you to see these wheels and see how grubby these are, but they are not looking too good at all. You can see how much is built up in those grooves, which you can make out now. There is basically no wear on these wheels, but they are just so very dirty. So to prevent them becoming no good from getting damaged from being left this dirty, and I will talk more about that, we will get on and clean them. But most of bearing maintenance, you shouldn't have to do this sort of tear down very often on your gear. In general, your gear should be able to get by with just some minor maintenance, and I'll show you what that is. So, slight change of angle now so that we can see against the black there that what I am going to do is take some basic antibacterial wipes, which you can keep in your skate bag, and when you see that surface debris on your bearings, just give them a little wipe. I mean, that's a tiny little swipe over the bearing, and that will make sure that there's not so much debris on there that's going to then get into your bearing and slow it down and make it crunchy. These ones are obviously beyond that. They need a lot more done, so I will show you how to give these a thorough clean and make them as good as new. It's a good idea just to use an old towel to put down on your workspace before you start, so that the debris on the wheels doesn't end up destroying any surfaces or all the cleaning products or oils. I've just popped a wheel off my outdoor skates so that I can remove these bearings, and I wish I had a bearing pull, push, press, whatever you want to call it, but I don't. I would like one. It's on my wish list, but all you've got to do to take out the bearings is you take the back one out, which is the one that's closest to being flush with the wheel. See how that one is set in? This back one is flush. This one should pop out relatively easily with a twist. I kind of dropped it when I did that then, but you just twist that one out and that one's free. And the other one, the easiest way is not actually to twist it out, but just turn the skate on its side and gently tap the inner silver rim. Try not to hit the actual bearing, but if you gently tap that inner silver rim, that other bearing will just pop straight through. So there's a lot of people that are there trying to lever both bearings out, and it's really hard to get that inset one. I did it once upon a time as well. So don't feel embarrassed if you're still trying to lever your wheel's bearings out like that, but you only need to do it on one side and then you can pop the other one through super fast. I've gone ahead and done all the others. I'm just doing the last one now. Out comes that back side. Out comes the front side, and we are ready to go. So I'm going to take all of these dirty wheels now, and I've prepared a bowl of soapy water, just some dish soap, dish liquid, in a bowl, and I'm going to toss all those wheels in to have a little bit of a bath, a bit of a soak before we get on. I've got a couple of things on standby to give them a clean shortly. I've got an old toothbrush, but you can also use a nail brush. I've used both, they're quite good. And for very dirty ones that have a lot of mud stuck in the ridges, I just use some steel wool. So this is, and you can use any kind of abrasive cleaning item like this, but old-fashioned steel wool to scrub the grooves inside the wheel. That's also really handy if you're one of those people that doesn't like the decals on the outside of the wheel and you like to scrub them off. So the brand and whatnot. Some people are really they really like these things to look clean, so they don't like their wheels to have the label that slowly wears away over time from normal skating, so they like to just get that off. I've got a pile here of all the bearings ready to go, and I will show you how I prepare them. Those antibacterial wipes I mentioned, what I do now is I take the wipes and I wipe down the surface of each wheel before I go taking the caps off, because the worst thing you don't want happening is taking the cap off while it's got dirt on it and having that dirt then fall into where the ball bearings are, because whenever possible you don't want to go submerging your bearings into a liquid and cleaning them if you can get away with keeping the bearing dry, because think about metals and liquids. You will get corrosion and rust if you aren't careful. So anytime you can avoid doing that type of cleaning, I do that. So I will now take each bearing and wipe off the surface just to get that surface dirt off, and that makes popping the caps off way easier as well because I won't get such dirty hands. Some bearings have caps on both sides. This one just has it on one side. You leave this side alone. That's just a little, I don't know if I can zoom in on it, but it's just like, crap, I accidentally cut myself off then. It's just a little ring that clips the ball bearings in place, and they can fall out sometimes when you're doing bearing maintenance. This is a different brand of bearing, and it had a cap on both sides, and it has a different type of clip holding them in place. If your clip does come out, you simply position all of the bearings, all of the balls in the rough position that they would normally sit, and you press the cap down to put it back in. So that's the way you reinsert that if that does come out. But I try and leave that in because it just makes a lot of fiddling and takes way more time than it needs to. So all of these are going to get a wipe down, and then we're going to take these caps off and check out what the inside's like. All right, I get the feeling these are going to be pretty bad. I've just wiped them down. You can really see a lot of debris, even on that clip, and they're very tacky and sticky, which tells me that somebody has used the wrong type of lubricant on these at some point. Yes, Chicky, hang on. All right, I better hurry up and get this done. Little one needs me, but I just lever these out with a blade very carefully. I can't do this one-handed. Well, maybe I can, but it's that easy. And a lot of places say use a safety pin. Personally, I've found that shoving a pin in there causes damage and causes this to bend, as opposed to using the blade, which is quite flat. But I mean, just obviously use common sense. This is a blade, this is sharp, it could cut you. So then we're going to have a look and see what this is like. It is clean inside, so it really is just surface debris, and that is wonderful. Now, if I did want to clean these, I would then use a plastic container, much like this one, and I would put the bearings all in with the caps off, but the clips still in, and put in a bearing cleaning liquid. Now, I'm not going to get into the bearing cleaning liquid debate, but I like to use a bearing cleaning liquid made by a brand that does bearing oils and liquids. I don't like to mess around with different things. I've heard of people using, I believe, methylated spirits, which I think would be fine. I've heard of people using Windex. Now, the thing is, I can see why people say Windex is because it, and I've got some here, it does evaporate. And that's the whole thing, is whatever you use, you need to think maybe alcohol based so that it can evaporate. But personally, I've only used bearing wash, proper bearing wash, and probably always will because I like to look after my gear. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of different sources on the internet saying all the different things you can use to clean these up. These caps are coming off really easy, as you can see. This is a lot easier than shoving a pin in, and this is a very blunt blade, by the way, if you can see how I'm handling it. I've used it for doing this sort of job for a long time now. This is the one that stays in my little kit. This is my little kit with some bearing oil. I also have some of the Bones Speed Cream, which is my favorite bearing oil. While we are on the topic of bearing oil, now that's another one along with the cleaners that gets people, and I will turn the camera to front facing for this. Okay, I've had to open the blind to let the light in, but bearing oils, do not use any other lubricants because they are not made to go in skeet bearings. They might be made for mechanical bearings. Look, if it's something you've used for a long time, I've heard of people using engine oils and things like that. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you change what you're doing, but I have had easily over 10 years of use out of my bearings by using Bones Speed Cream. If you cannot find a bearing lubricant, the only other substitute I would suggest is something like Singer sewing machine oil, a really nice viscosity oil. Do not use, especially do not use any, what do they call it? I've got to remember what it's called. Like lock lubricant, or it's going to come to me later, but it's a common one that people always think is a lubricant, but it's not. What those types of things are designed to do is they're designed to evaporate and dry out. They're also designed to dislodge debris that builds up inside mechanical objects. So even though they're called a lubricant, they don't actually lubricate your wheels, and very soon after using it, you will end up on dry bearings and it will cause damage. It can even seize them up completely. So try and use a proper lubricant, and what we're going to do is, now that these are clean, I will go over these caps and give them a better clean with these antibacterial wipes and let them dry fully. I'm not going to need to submerge these bearings, but if I did, I would simply shake them in a bearing cleaner liquid, lay them out on a towel to dry, make sure that they're completely dry before you reassemble them. And if you need to, you could blow out with a keyboard cleaner, like a high pressurized air, or a hairdryer to get any extra debris out, or to dry them faster so that you're not reassembling your bearings with any liquid or moisture left on them, because you don't want to go locking that in. I am at the point where I can see that I was right. They are Bones Reds. All right, so when it comes to adding the lubricant now to these bearings, I am simply going to add 2 drops to each bearing. So it is 1, and I try and land it just on a slight angle, if I can show you, on a slight angle like this, so it goes a little bit into the hub of the bearing, and then I'm going to hold it between 2 fingers and spin it around quite vigorously so that that oil can really work its way around. And once that's done, you simply recap it. So you just press that cap back in, and that is how you do your bearings. So you go ahead and do the rest of them, and now I will show you how I clean up the wheels. These have been soaking for a bit now. You can see that they really need a good clean. I'm going to give them a brush over with the steel wool and toothbrush, and then show you what we get them to. Okay, I'm not going to show you the end result of these wheels and bearings yet. I will show that at the very end, but what I need to say is simply that if you can avoid doing all of this work just by giving your wheels and bearings a regular wipe down with some antibacterial wipes, you're going to save yourself a hell of a lot of time and money. So try and be proactive with your gear, and prevent needing to do a full tear down clean like this as much as possible. Sometimes when you're reassembling, it can be hard to press those bearings straight back into the wheel, and one of the ways that I get around that is by pushing it as far as I can using just my fingers, and then placing it onto the axle, and then using the nut and tightening that nut until that bearing is in the rest of the way. Always remember, tighten your nuts until you feel that pressure, like it's starting to be tight the whole way, and then give it a half turn back in the opposite direction for the proper adjustment of your wheels so that they run and roll nice and smooth.
I made an isoframe and I just laid it on the wall. Then I made myself an enchanting table so I could make my first diamond pickaxe and get my first ever enchantment. Then I realized my wheat field has grown, so I could start saving some farm animals. First I wanted a chicken, so I found this one drowning in a hole, and I rescued him, and now he lives in my garden. And that's the end of day 20. On day 21, I found a nice area just beyond the wheat field, and I decided to build a pig pen.
Alright, just do that finger tight first, and then with the tool, hold it still for me, thank you. And it stopped there, just lightly tightening, and then I turn a half turn back for the perfect adjustment. It's gotten loud around here with YouTube kids Minecraft playing in the background, but anyway, that was about as clean as I could get these. They are stains that are left, because they'd obviously been in that state for a long time, but they are really, really, really beautiful wheels. Nice and clean, ready to go. They are spinning smooth. The bearings have come up nice and bright red. Everything's really clean, spotless. So that is how I maintain derby and speed skating wheels. That's all for now. I am Violet Vex. I skate with Northern Brisbane Rollers in Australia, and hopefully we will catch you soon. Bye.